Hey everyone. I, 34, male, and until 3 months ago, I thought I had a pretty solid marriage. Turns out I was living in a fantasy while my wife was living a completely different life behind my back. Let me start from the beginning. My wife Diane and I had been married for 7 years. We met through work. Both of us are in marketing, though at different companies. She was this incredibly driven, ambitious woman who seemed to have her whole life mapped out. I was drawn to that confidence, that certainty about what she wanted. We had what I thought was a great relationship. She was successful at her job. I was doing well at mine, and we'd built this comfortable life together in the suburbs. Nice house, 2 cars, the whole American dream package. Diane always talked about wanting kids eventually, but she wanted to get her career to a certain point first. Made sense to me. We were both still young, no rush. Looking back now, I can see there were signs I missed, or maybe I chose to ignore them. Diane had always been secretive about her phone, but I figured everyone deserves privacy, right? She'd get texts late at night and step out to take calls, claiming it was work stuff. Since she did have a demanding job with clients on the West Coast, the timing seemed plausible. She also went out with her girlfriends more frequently over the past year. Girls' nights, networking events, work happy hours that seemed to run pretty late. But Diane had always been social and I trusted her completely. Looking back, I was probably naive, but I'd rather be trusting than paranoid. You know, the weird thing is our relationship didn't really seem to be suffering. We still had date nights, we still laughed together. Our physical relationship was fine. If anything, she seemed more energetic lately, more confident. I actually thought she was just hitting her stride professionally and personally, but there were little things that didn't quite add up, like how she'd get dressed up for these girls' nights. We're talking full makeup, new outfits, the works, way more effort than she'd put in for our date nights. When I joked about it, she'd just say she wanted to look professional for networking events. She also started working out more, which I supported. She joined this new gym that was pretty expensive, but she said it had better equipment and trainers. She started talking about getting in the best shape of her life. I thought it was great that she was taking care of herself. Then there were the work trips. Diane's job did involve some travel, but over the past 6 months, it seemed like she was going out of town every other weekend, always last-minute client emergencies or conference opportunities. I never questioned it because she was clearly advancing in her career and making good money. The discovery happened on a Tuesday morning in March. I was supposed to be in Chicago for a 3-day conference, but my flight got canceled due to weather. By the time I could have booked another flight, I would have missed the main presentation I wanted to see, so I just decided to work from home instead. I texted Diane to let her know I was home, but didn't hear back. Figured she was busy at work. Around 11 o'clock in the morning, I heard her car pull into the garage. She never comes home during the day, so I was surprised. Maybe she forgot something or was feeling sick. I was in my home office on a conference call, so I just assumed she'd come find me when she was ready. About 20 minutes later, I heard another car pull up. That was weird. We weren't expecting any deliveries or service calls. I peeked out the window and saw a black BMW I didn't recognize. That's when I heard voices in the house. Diane's voice and a man's voice I didn't recognize. They were being quiet, but not quiet enough. My stomach immediately dropped. Something was very, very wrong. I muted my conference call and stepped out of my office. I could hear them upstairs now, in our bedroom. Diane was giggling. This light, flirty giggle I hadn't heard from her in years, not since we were dating, actually. My heart was pounding as I crept up the stairs. Part of me was hoping there was some innocent explanation. Maybe it was a repair guy or something. But deep down, I knew what I was going to find. The bedroom door was partially open. I stood there for what felt like forever, just listening. I could hear rustling, whispered conversation, and then sounds I really didn't want to identify, but there was no denying what was happening. I pushed the door open. There they were, in our bed. Our bed that we'd picked out together, where we'd made plans for our future, where we'd spent countless mornings drinking coffee and reading the news. Diane was with some guy I'd never seen before. Tall, dark hair, looked like he spent a lot of time at the gym. They both froze when they saw me. For about 5 seconds, nobody said anything. The guy scrambled for his clothes while Diane just stared at me with this expression I couldn't read. Not guilty, not ashamed, almost annoyed, like I'd interrupted something and she was irritated about the timing. "Justin," she said, finally pulling the sheet around herself. "You're supposed to be in Chicago." That was her opening line, not, "I'm sorry," or, "This isn't what it looks like." Just pointing out that I wasn't where I was supposed to be, like this was somehow my fault for catching them. "Flight got canceled," I said, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. Inside, I felt like I was falling through the floor. The guy, I found out later his name was Ryan, was pulling on his pants. "Man, I'm sorry," he said to me. "I didn't know you'd be here. Didn't know I'd be here in my own house, in my own bedroom." Ryan, just go, Diane said sharply. I'll handle this. Handle this. Handle. Like it was a business problem she needed to manage. Ryan grabbed the rest of his clothes and basically ran out of the room. I heard the front door slam a minute later, then his car speeding away, and then it was just Diane and me, staring at each other across our destroyed marriage. We need to talk, she said, standing up and grabbing her robe. Yeah, I said. We do. We went downstairs to the kitchen. Diane made herself coffee like it was any other morning. The normalcy of it was somehow worse than if she'd been crying or freaking out. So, I said, sitting across from her at our kitchen table. How long? Does it matter? She asked, not looking at me. Yes, it matters. How long, Diane? She sighed like I was being unreasonable. About 8 months. 8 months. I felt sick. 8 months of lies, of pretending, of me thinking we were building something together while she was building something with someone else. Who is he? Does that matter either? Stop asking me if things matter, I snapped. Everything matters now. Who is he? His name is Ryan. We met at the gym. The gym? Of course, all those workouts, all that talk about getting in the best shape of her life. She was doing it for him. Are you in love with him? I asked. That's when she looked at me directly for the first time since I'd walked in. I don't know, she said. Maybe. It's complicated. Complicated. 7 years of marriage and her cheating on me was complicated? What's complicated about it? I asked. You're either in love with him or you're not. You either want to be married to me or you don't. It's not that simple, Justin. Ryan and I have history. We dated in college before you and I met. He was the one that got away. You know, we broke up when he moved across the country for work. I never expected to see him again. The one that got away. Great, so I wasn't just competing with some random guy. I was competing with her first love, her college boyfriend, the one she'd built up in her memory as this perfect lost romance. So when you saw him again, you just decided to blow up our marriage? I didn't decide anything, she said, getting defensive. It just happened. We started talking, reminiscing about old times. One thing led to another. For 8 months, Diane? 8 months isn't one thing led to another. 8 months is a relationship. She didn't deny it. What do you want to do now? I asked. Do you want to work on our marriage, or do you want to be with him? I don't know, she said again. I need time to think. Time to think. After 8 months of cheating, she needed more time to think? While you're thinking, I said, where am I supposed to go? Am I supposed to just sit here wondering if you're going to choose me or your ex-boyfriend? That's when her whole demeanor changed. She leaned forward, her voice getting harder, more calculated. Actually, Justin, you're not going anywhere. What do you mean? I mean, you're not leaving me, and you're not telling anyone about this. I stared at her. Are you serious right now? Dead serious. You leave me, you try to divorce me, and I'll destroy you. How exactly are you going to destroy me? She smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. I've been documenting your behavior for months. Your drinking problem, your anger issues, your controlling behavior. I have recordings, photos, texts to my friends about how scared I am of you. My blood ran cold. What drinking problem? What anger issues? I don't have either of those things. Don't you? She said. You drink wine with dinner almost every night. Sometimes you have a beer when you get home from work, and you've raised your voice at me during arguments. You've grabbed my arm when you were trying to make a point. I was stunned. She was talking about completely normal things, having a glass of wine with dinner, normal marital disagreements, touching her arm during a conversation, and somehow twisting them into abuse. Diane, that's insane. You know that's not abuse. A jury wouldn't know that, especially when I tell them how you isolated me from my friends and family, how you monitored my phone and computer, how you threatened to hurt me if I ever tried to leave. I never did any of those things. Can you prove it? Because I can prove you did. I've been very careful, Justin, very thorough. She pulled out her phone and started showing me things. Photos of herself with what looked like bruises that I now realized were probably makeup. Text messages to her sister talking about how controlling and scary I'd become. Audio recordings of me raising my voice during arguments, but edited so you couldn't hear what I was responding to. You're insane, I said. This is sociopathic. This is protection, she said calmly. I've seen what happens to women when their husbands find out they're having affairs. I've seen the divorce proceedings, the character assassination, the way the woman always gets painted as the villain. I decided I wasn't going to let that happen to me. So, you've been planning this for 8 months. You've been building a fake case against me? I've been protecting myself, and now I'm protecting you too. You stay married to me, you keep your mouth shut about Ryan, and none of this ever has to see the light of day. We can even go to marriage counseling if it makes you feel better. Work on our issues. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She'd been cheating on me, documenting fake abuse, and now she was threatening to destroy me if I didn't just accept it and pretend everything was fine. And if I refuse, I asked? Then I file for divorce, citing domestic abuse. I get half of everything, plus alimony. You get branded as a wife, beater, and your career is over. Good luck explaining to your clients why your wife had to flee your abusive marriage. She had it all figured out. This wasn't a moment of panic or desperation. This was a calculated plan she'd been working on for months. You're sick, I said. I'm smart, she replied. And you're going to be smart too, and realize that staying married to me is your best option. I got up from the table. I needed to think, needed to process what was happening. I'm going for a drive. Don't do anything stupid, Justin. I'd hate to have to use any of this material. I left the house and drove around for 3 hours trying to wrap my head around the situation. The woman I'd been married to for 7 years, the woman I thought I knew inside and out, had been living a complete lie. Not just the affair, but this whole elaborate scheme to frame me for abuse if I didn't go along with her betrayal. But as I drove, I started getting angry. Really angry. Not at being cheated on. That hurt, but I could have dealt with that. I was angry at the manipulation, the gaslighting, the way she'd systematically been building a false case against me while I was completely oblivious. That's when I decided I wasn't going to roll over and let her destroy me. I called my buddy Jake, who's a lawyer. We'd gone to college together, and he specialized in family law. I told him I needed to see him urgently, and we met at his office that evening. Holy Justin, he said after I told him everything. This is incredibly sophisticated manipulation. She's been planning this for months. What are my options? Well, the good news is that what she's doing is probably extortion. The bad news is that she's right about one thing. If she files first with all this fake evidence, it's going to be very hard to prove it's fabricated. So, what do? We get our own evidence. If she's been having an affair for 8 months, there's going to be a trail. Hotel records, text messages, photos. We need to document everything before she has a chance to destroy it. Jake connected me with a private investigator named Sarah Chen. Sarah was this no-nonsense woman in her 50s who'd worked in law enforcement for 20 years before going private. She specialized in infidelity cases and had dealt with situations like mine before. The key, Sarah told me, is that we need to prove she's been planning this false abuse narrative while conducting the affair. If we can show premeditation, it undermines her entire case. Over the next 2 weeks, Sarah worked her magic. She found hotel records showing Diane and Ryan had been meeting regularly for months. She tracked down witnesses who'd seen them together. She even found social media posts and photos that contradicted Diane's timeline of our alleged marital problems. But the biggest break came when Sarah discovered that Diane had been sloppy with her digital security. She'd been using our shared iPad to communicate with Ryan. And even though she deleted the messages from her phone, they were still backed up to our family iCloud account. Your wife is smart, but she's not as smart as she thinks she is, Sarah said, showing me printouts of hundreds of text messages between Diane and Ryan. Look at this. The messages were devastating. Not just because they proved the affair, but because they showed Diane's real mindset. In one message, she told Ryan, "Justin is so pathetic. He actually believes all my lies about working late and girls' nights. It's almost sad how trusting he is." In another, "I've been documenting everything I need to destroy him in court. By the time I'm done, he'll be lucky to get supervised visitation with a goldfish. And the most damaging, I can't wait to be done with this charade. Once I have enough evidence to guarantee I'll win in court, I'm going to take him for everything he's worth, and we can finally be together openly." There were also messages discussing specific instances where she'd fabricated evidence, how she'd used makeup to create fake bruises, how she'd provoked arguments and recorded only my responses, how she'd lied to her friends and family to create witnesses for her abuse narrative. "This is premeditated fraud," Jake said when he saw the evidence. "This isn't just adultery, this is criminal." Sarah also discovered something else. Diane and Ryan had been planning to start a business together using money from our divorce settlement. They'd already been meeting with investors using projections that included a substantial cash infusion from a divorce settlement. "She's been selling investors on a business plan that depends on defrauding you in divorce court," Sarah said. "That's securities fraud on top of everything else." Armed with all this evidence, Jake advised me to file for divorce first, before Diane could put her plan into action. "But don't tell her you're filing," he said. "Let's serve her the papers and present all the evidence at the same time, giving her no opportunity to destroy evidence or manufacture more fake abuse claims." The plan was set. We'd file on a Friday afternoon and have her served at her office on Monday morning when she'd be at work and surrounded by colleagues. The public nature of it would make it harder for her to claim I was being threatening or abusive. That weekend was surreal. Diane acted completely normal, even affectionate. She made my favorite dinner on Saturday night and suggested we watch a movie together. The whole time she had no idea that I knew everything and that her whole world was about to come crashing down. On Sunday night, she mentioned that she was having lunch with Ryan on Monday. "Just as friends," she said casually. "We've decided to work on being friends again for closure." "That's great, honey," I said. "I'm glad you're getting closure." She had no idea what kind of closure she was about to get. Monday morning, I went to work as usual. At 10 o'clock in the morning, Jake called to confirm that Diane had been served at her office. The process server also gave her copies of all the evidence we'd gathered, the text messages, the hotel records, everything. My phone started ringing at 10:15 in the morning. "You son of a bitch," Diane screamed when I answered. "How dare you violate my privacy?" "How dare I violate your privacy?" I said calmly. "You've been cheating on me for 8 months and framing me for domestic abuse. Those messages were taken out of context. You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You've been planning to destroy my life so you could steal my money and start a business with your boyfriend." "It's not like that." "It's exactly like that, Diane. I have everything, every text, every fake photo, every lie you told your friends and family. It's over." She was quiet for a moment. Then her voice changed, got calculating again. "Fine. You want to play hardball? I still have all my evidence against you. I'll file a countersuit." "With what evidence?" I interrupted. "The fake bruises you created with makeup? The edited audio recordings? The lies you told your sister? Because I have texts where you admit to faking all of it." Another pause. Longer this time. "Justin," she said, her voice softer now, "we can work this out. We can go to counseling. I made mistakes." "But you didn't make mistakes, Diane. You made choices. Calculated, deliberate choices to betray me and then destroy me when I found out. There's no coming back from that. Please, I love you. I never meant for it to go this far. You love me? You have text messages talking about how pathetic I am. You've been planning to take everything I own and give it to your ex-boyfriend. That's not love." She started crying then. "I was just scared. I didn't know how to end things with Ryan. I thought if I could just buy some time. By framing me for domestic abuse? That was your solution?" I panicked. "I'm sorry, please, can we just talk about this?" "We'll talk in court," I said, and hung up. The next few days were insane. Diane tried everything: tears, threats, bargaining, more threats. She showed up at my office. She called my family. She even tried to get our mutual friends to intervene on her behalf, but Jake had been smart about how we'd handled the evidence release. Along with serving Diane, he'd also sent copies of the key evidence to her family, just to prevent her from spinning some story about me being abusive or vindictive. Her parents called me that evening. Her dad was furious with her. Her mom was crying. "We had no idea," her mom said. "If we'd known she was lying about you hurting her." "She's very convincing," I said. "I lived with her for 7 years and had no idea she was capable of this." Diane's sister also called to apologize. Turned out Diane had been feeding her stories about my controlling behavior for months, preparing her to be a witness in the divorce. "I feel so stupid," her sister said. "I believed everything she told me." Jake filed motions to freeze all our joint accounts, to prevent Diane from destroying any more evidence, and to get a restraining order preventing her from making any more false allegations about me. The restraining order hearing was my first time seeing Diane in court. She'd hired some expensive lawyer, probably using money from our joint accounts before they got frozen, and came in looking like the perfect victim: conservative outfit, minimal makeup, the works. But Jake was ready for her performance. He played the audio recordings where she'd admitted to faking the abuse evidence. He showed the text messages where she'd laughed about how gullible I was. He presented the hotel records and witness statements, proving the affair. By the end of the hearing, even Diane's lawyer looked disgusted with her. The judge not only granted the restraining order, but also ordered Diane to pay my legal fees for having to defend against her fraudulent abuse allegations. "Mrs. Peterson," the judge said, "I've seen a lot of ugly divorces in my courtroom, but I've rarely seen such calculated and malicious deception. You've not only committed fraud against your husband, but you've undermined legitimate domestic abuse victims with your false allegations." Diane's lawyer tried to argue that she'd just been scared and had made some bad decisions. But the evidence was too overwhelming. The judge wasn't buying it. The divorce proceedings took 4 months, but there was never really any question about the outcome. Jake had built an airtight case, and Diane's credibility was completely destroyed. In the end, I got the house, my retirement accounts, and most of our other assets. Diane got her car and her personal belongings. The judge also ordered her to pay me spousal support for 2 years, given that her fraudulent behavior had forced me to spend tens of thousands of dollars on legal fees and investigation costs. But the best part, or maybe the worst part depending on how you look at it, was what happened to Diane and Ryan's business plan. Sarah, the private investigator, had discovered that they'd been meeting with potential investors throughout the affair, promising that Diane would have a substantial cash settlement to invest in their new marketing consulting firm. Some of these investors had already put money into preliminary agreements based on those promises. When the investors found out that not only was Diane not getting a big divorce settlement, but that the whole business plan had been based on defrauding me, they pulled their funding and threatened to sue for securities fraud. Ryan, it turned out, wasn't quite as committed to their relationship as Diane had thought. When the money disappeared and the legal troubles started mounting, he decided he didn't want to be associated with her anymore. From what I heard through mutual acquaintances, he broke up with her about 1 week after the divorce was finalized. So Diane ended up losing everything: her marriage, her boyfriend, her financial security, and her reputation. Her own family was disgusted with her behavior. Her friends, once they learned the truth, wanted nothing to do with her. She had to move back in with her parents and find a new job, since the story of her fraud had spread through our industry. Turns out potential employers aren't too keen on hiring someone who's been documented fabricating evidence and committing fraud. I ran into her sister at the grocery store about 6 months after the divorce was final. She told me Diane was in therapy and had started dating someone new, but that it was hard for her to trust anyone after what she'd done. She asks about you sometimes, her sister said. I think she regrets everything that happened. I'm sure she regrets the consequences, I said. I don't think she regrets her choices. And honestly, I didn't care anymore. The whole experience had been traumatic, but it also opened my eyes to what I'd been missing in my marriage. The signs had been there: the manipulation, the casual lies, the way she'd prioritize her own interests over everything else. I'd just been too trusting to see them. I'm in a much better place now. I kept the house, got a promotion at work, and started dating again about 8 months after the divorce was final. I'm more careful now, more aware of red flags, but I'm not bitter or cynical. If anything, I'm grateful that I found out who Diane really was before we had kids, or I'd invested even more years in the relationship. The woman I'm seeing now, Lisa, is the complete opposite of Diane. She's honest, straightforward, and has this quality that I realized was missing from my marriage. She actually seems to like me as a person, not what I could provide for her, not what I represented as a husband, but just me. We've talked about what happened with Diane, and Lisa's perspective has been helpful. Some people see relationships as transactions, she told me. They're always calculating what they can get versus what they have to give. It sounds like Diane saw your marriage as a business arrangement that she could optimize by finding a better deal. That actually makes a lot of sense. Looking back, Diane never really seemed to enjoy just being with me. She enjoyed what our relationship did for her: the financial security, the social status, the comfortable lifestyle. But she never seemed to just like hanging out with me, talking to me, being around me. Lisa and I spend hours just talking about random stuff. She laughs at my dumb jokes. She's interested in my work. She actually seems to find me interesting as a person. It's such a basic thing, but it was missing from my marriage, and I didn't even realize it. Jake, my lawyer, has become a closer friend through all this. He told me that Diane's case was one of the most premeditated frauds he'd ever seen in family court. Usually, when people make false abuse allegations, he said, it's a panicked reaction to being caught cheating. But Diane was planning this for months before you even found out about the affair. That level of calculation is sociopathic. He also told me that the case has become something of a teaching example in his practice. He uses it to show other attorneys how to spot and document premeditated fraud in divorce proceedings. The key, he said, was that she got sloppy with her digital communications. She was so focused on building fake evidence against you that she forgot to cover her tracks with Ryan. If she'd been smarter about her communication security, this could have gone very differently. It's scary to think about, honestly. If Diane had been more careful, if she hadn't left that digital trail, I might have ended up being the one branded as an abuser. My career could have been destroyed, my reputation ruined, and she would have walked away with half my assets to start her new life with Ryan. Sarah, the private investigator, told me that cases like mine are becoming more common. Social media and smartphones make it easier than ever to fake evidence, she said. People can stage photos, edit recordings, create fake text conversations. The technology that should make the truth easier to find is also making it easier to fabricate lies. She said the key is to always document everything and to be aware of behavioral changes in your partner. Trust is important in a marriage, she said, but blind trust is dangerous. When someone's behavior changes dramatically, there's usually a reason. Looking back, the signs were all there with Diane. The increased secrecy, the new focus on appearance, the more frequent outings, the way she'd gotten more critical and distant. I'd attributed it all to normal life changes, career stress, getting older, going through phases. But it was actually her preparing to leave the marriage while setting me up to be the fall guy. The hardest part of the whole experience wasn't even the betrayal. Honestly, it was realizing how completely I'd been fooled. For 8 months, I'd been living in a completely different reality than my wife. She was planning her exit strategy and building a case against me, while I was thinking about vacation plans and retirement savings. It made me question everything, my judgment, my ability to read people, whether I could trust my own perceptions. For a while, I was second-guessing every interaction, looking for hidden meanings and ulterior motives in everything. The whole experience changed how I approach relationships now. Not in a paranoid way, but in a more intentional way. I pay attention to how people treat service workers, how they talk about their exes, how they handle conflict. I look for consistency between someone's words and actions. With Lisa, everything feels more genuine. When she says she loves me, her actions support that. When she makes plans with me, she follows through. When she's frustrated about something, she talks to me about it instead of building resentment or looking for alternatives. It sounds simple, but after 7 years with someone who was constantly calculating and manipulating, having a straightforward relationship feels revolutionary. I also learned a lot about legal self-protection. Jake helped me understand how to document things properly, how to protect assets, how to recognize the warning signs of someone building a false case against you. The sad reality, Jake told me, is that false allegations in divorce proceedings are becoming more common. People think they can manipulate the system, and sometimes they're right. The key is to be prepared and to document everything. I now keep better records of everything: finances, communications, even just daily activities. It sounds paranoid, but it's really just being prepared. If someone ever tries to fabricate a case against me again, I'll have the documentation to defend myself. The other thing I learned is the importance of having a support system that's independent of your spouse. During my marriage to Diane, we'd become pretty isolated as a couple. Most of our friends were mutual friends. We spent most of our social time together, and I'd gotten out of touch with a lot of my individual friendships. When everything went down, I realized how dangerous that isolation had been. If I hadn't had Jake as an independent friend who could help me navigate the legal system, things could have gone very differently. Now, I make sure to maintain my own friendships and interests outside of my relationship. It's not about not trusting my partner. It's about maintaining my own identity and support network. Lisa understands this and actually encourages it. She has her own friends and interests too, and we both think it makes our relationship stronger. We're choosing to be together because we want to be, not because we have to be or because we don't have other options. One thing that still bothers me sometimes is thinking about all the people who believe Diane's lies about me, her family, our friends, even some of my own family members who heard her version first. Even after the truth came out, some relationships never fully recovered. There's something about false allegations that leaves a stain, even after they're proven false. Some people will always have that little voice in the back of their head wondering, what if there was some truth to it? It's frustrating, but I've learned to accept that not everyone will believe the truth, even when it's documented and proven in court. But the people who matter believed the evidence and stood by me, my parents, my close friends, even some of Diane's family members who were disgusted by what she'd done. Those are the relationships that matter. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I'd never caught Diane that day. How long would she have continued the affair? How much more evidence would she have fabricated? When was she planning to pull the trigger on her false abuse allegations? Sarah, the investigator, found evidence suggesting Diane was planning to file for divorce within the next few months. She'd already consulted with several divorce attorneys, including one who specialized in domestic violence cases. She was just waiting to build a little more evidence before making her move. You catching her probably saved yourself from an even worse situation, Sarah told me. If she'd had more time to prepare, her case would have been even more sophisticated and harder to disprove. It's chilling to think about how close I came to being completely destroyed by someone I trusted completely. The legal proceedings were officially closed 8 months ago, but I still get updates occasionally through Jake about how Diane's doing. Not because I care about her well-being particularly, but because I want to make sure she's not planning any kind of retaliation or further legal action. Last I heard, she was working as a project coordinator at a small company, making about half what she used to make in her previous role. Her reputation in our industry was pretty much destroyed after word got out about the fraud case. She's apparently in a new relationship, but from what Jake heard through legal channels, the guy doesn't know about her history. That's not your problem, Jake reminded me when I mentioned feeling like maybe I should warn the guy. You've done your part by exposing the truth. What she does with her life now is on her. He's right. Of course, I've moved on, and Diane's future choices aren't my responsibility. But there's still a part of me that feels bad for whoever she's with now, wondering if he has any idea what she's capable of. Lisa thinks I'm too generous and still caring about Diane's other potential victims. Some people have to learn lessons the hard way, she says. You can't save everyone from making their own mistakes. She's probably right. I learned my lessons the hard way too, and while it was painful, it ultimately made me stronger and more aware.